Hey guys, this is Vernier for cardowners.com, bringing you the second part of Crushing the Micros, updated for 2013. So today we're going to talk about post-flop play from early position in single-raised pots, and the three key ideas are this interplay between your hand, the flop texture, and your opponent's range. And I know that this is something that everybody thinks about in any post-flop situation anyhow, but I want to highlight some things. So when it comes to your hand, we really need to be thinking about what kind of cards are going to be good for us to barrel, and just how strong is our hand relative to our opponent's range. Now, the barrel cards are also going to interplay with the flop texture and your opponent's range, so all these things are connected. As far as flop texture, we want to look at the presence and the number of high cards. And by high cards, I mean queens, kings, and aces. Jacks are okay, but jacks I would consider more of like a medium card. So like 7, 8, 9, 10 jack, I would kind of consider those medium cards. In the presence of draws, specifically just the number of straight draws, that people are a lot more likely to have a straight draw than they are to have a flush draw. Opponent's range, most opponents are going to be tightest in the small blind when calling, loosest on the button, looser in the cutoff, and then middle position and big blind, it depends. Adjusted for VPIP, obviously, the looser your opponent is in general, the looser they're going to have, the looser their continuation range is going to be against your opens from any position, and the presence and absence of fish. So if there are major fish in the blinds, then we expect people to be calling more from the cutoff. We expect them to be calling more in position. And just in general, if there's fish left to play, then we expect people to be calling more. On the other hand, if there are very aggressive players left to act, then we expect people to play a little bit tighter. So just as a reminder, this is a variation of my early position, middle position opening range. And we talked in the last video about when you should tighten up and when you should loosen up. Now, so that's going to play into our hand. Now, let's talk about the opponent's continuation range against early position and middle position raises. So I have a tight, average, and loose range there, and we already talked about, I would say most players will play most pocket pairs from just about any position, especially in the blinds. And these other factors, like their position, their VPIP, and the presence of absence of fish are going to move their range either up or down, depending on those three factors. And we're going to give examples of how all these things kind of interplay. So when I'm looking to continue post flop, here's a general outline of my thought process. This is not 100%, every time, but in general, we want to look at how we connect with the flop. But we're going to come right back to this. We're going to look at a bunch of hand types. So in the last video, I gave you guys this little chart which had different kind of hands and different kind of flop textures. And now we're going to add a villain type. So we've got our hand, we've got the flop texture. Now we're going to look at our opponent's range, and we're going to go through this general thought process. So to do this, we are going to bring in Flopzilla and start with our first example. So our first situation, we're going to look at this upper left-hand corner. We have 7 of hearts, 8 of hearts on a 5 of hearts, 8 of diamonds, 7 of club board. So we're going to look at Flopzilla, and we're going to use that to talk about our opponent's range. And in the first situation, we've got a 21-17-6 regular who calls in the small blind, and the big blind is regular. Now, why does that matter? we are going to go back to these three key ideas. Our hand is, I guess in terms of its absolute hand strength, it's not that strong. We've got second pair with essentially no kicker. But the flop texture, there's no high cards, and we're going to look at the villain's range in a second. There's going to be no draws as well. Well, there's going to be some backdoor draws, but I'll get to that. Our opponent's range, he called in the small blind, so he's going to be pretty tight there. The big blind is irregular, so again, that is something that's going to downgrade his range to being fairly tight. And adjusted for VPIP, I would say that's pretty average. So because of that, we're going to give him the tight range we've talked about earlier, and we're going to take out ace king and queens plus because we expect him to be 3-betting those pre-flop. So what does that tell us? Let me go back to here. We're going to look at this general thought process flow chart we had, and we're going to go through it based on this situation. So did you connect with the flop? And the answer is yes. How strongly? I would say weakly. But the next question is the $1 million questions is what range can the villain continue with? And this is a very important question. So he's going to have top pair here. I would say, well, Flopzilla says 14.5% of the time. So he's going to have 10 combos of top pair, top kicker, actually even top pair plus. Now the fact that we have an 8 is a blocker for us, but he will also have 6 combos of 9/9/10/10 that he will continue with, and 6 combos of king queen suited, ace queen suited that have overcards plus backdoor straight and flush draws. So specifically king queen of not spades, actually all but spades. So clubs, diamonds, and hearts. So the question is our bet going to be plus EV? Well, he will continue with, he's going to have a pocket pair below top pair, top kicker, which is, 9s plus, and pocket 10s. We already said this is 31.9% of the time. If you add the 6 combos of king queen plus ace queen suited, he is going to, sorry, I just caught a mistake. He's going to have 12 combos of 9s and 10s and 6 combos of king queen suited and ace queen suited. So he's going to be folding everything else, and that means he's going to be folding more than 60% of the time. So we can definitely continuation bet this and be plus EV here. Now, if called, what can we continue with? I would say any heart is going to be good for us. Any 7 obviously is great for us. Any 8 is going to be good for us as well. Any ace is going to fold out the 12 combos of 9s and 10s and the 3 combos of king queen suited, unless he specifically hits the backdoor draw, the backdoor flush draw, because now he'll have a gutter plus the nut flush. But an ace is going to be good. Any king is going to be good for us as well. Now he will continue with king queen suited, but he will fold out the 9s and the 10s, which is going to be a big one for us. In terms of a queen, queen's kind of a mixed blessing because now both the king queen suited and the ace queen suited get there, but it will fold out the 9s and the 10s. So I actually don't know if I might check the queen because now his range is going to be much, much stronger. But I do think the queen is still going to be plus EV. So the 6 combos of king queen suited and ace queen suited are going to continue, but we are going to fold out the 9s and the 10s. So queen, I would say I would usually bet that. I think that's going to be good. So that's the general idea with the hand. Since we said he is going to continue with a fairly narrow range, we don't have to bet that big. And it looks like, betting here is definitely going to be plus EV. And here are the cards that we can continue with. So that's the analysis, and that's the plan for moving forward on this hand. So in the second hand, we're going to have the same situation in terms of the regular calling, but we're going to change our hand. So this time we're going to have king of spades, jack of clubs, and the flop is going to be queen of diamonds, nine of hearts, six of clubs. And we're going to do a similar analysis. So let's bring that up and let's look at what this says. So our hand is, well, we don't have anything. We have king high. We're going to talk about barrel cards in a little bit. The flop texture, let's bring that up. It's queen high, so there's the high cards, and we still don't expect to have a lot of draws. And in terms of our opponent's range, we already said adjusted for tightness, adjusted for VPIP, and the presence and absence of fish. It is what it is. So very similar range. This time we have no blockers. So let's take a look at how often the opponent will have top pair plus. So he's going to have top pair about 30% of the time. So he is going to have about 20 combos of top pair plus. And we expect him to continue with jacks and tens here. So again, let's look at middle pair is going to be 29 combos of middle pair plus. Actually, this is 29 total combos. So 9 more combos of middle pair plus. And in terms of backdoor draws, I don't think there's going to be any kind of backdoor draws that the player's going to have. So he's going to be folding here. He's going to continue with about 43% of hands. So the bet is going to be, it's definitely going to be plus EV to bet here. Let's go through the thought process in terms of, did you connect with the flop? The answer is not really. We don't have a main hand. The villain is going to continue with a narrow range. So he's going to be only continue with about 40% of hands. So we can bet this. Now, if we get called, let's look at the kind of turn cards that we can barrel. So if we get called, we're going to be continuing on any ace is almost always going to be, an answer for us. That's going to be folding out the jacks and the tens. It's probably not going to fold out any kind of kings and queens. So I didn't mention, but we do expect like an ace jack. Well, I don't know if he'll continue with ace jack with backdoor flush draw, but he might. So any ace is going to be good. Any king is going to be good as well. That's going to, it's going to give us top pair, and obviously any 10. So not that many cards that we can continue with. So more often than not, this is going to be a one and done. But I do think this is going to be a plus EV bet for us because it's going to be folding out the range to begin with is so pocket pair heavy that we're going to be folding out 2s through 5s and 7 and 8s with a bet on this flop. So in the last hand, I want to look at pocket 5s on a queen of hearts, 4 of spades, 2 of heart board. So same situation. We've got the reg that calls in the small blind, and we want to see this general thought process. So let's bring that up. Did you connect with the flop? I mean, you could say yes. How strongly? Not that strongly. What range will the villain continue with? So if we look at his range here, he starts with 68 combinations, and he's going to have top pair about 31% of the time. So he's going to have 21 combinations of top pair, which is, we said, what, 31% of the time? 31%. Now, middle pair, we don't expect him to be folding. We expect him to call at least once with like 6s through jacks. So that's an insane amount of hands here. So he's going to have middle pair or better 86% of the time. So he's going to have however many combos of that, 58 combos of that. So 68% of the time. Actually, no, it was what? It was 86% of the time. So that's the problem with a flop texture of having one high card and two low cards against a pretty tight range, which is filled with pocket pairs and actually a lot of queens. So because he's going to continue with a pretty wide range, I would not be continuation banning this flop. I don't think that we're going to be taking it down on the flop very often. So is the bet immediately plus EV? I would say no. If called, what can we continue with? Obviously any 5. And I would continue with on any ace or king. I might even continue with a jack because let's see what happens. So on the turn, if I'm going to lock the flop and I'm going to pick a turn. So if the turn is a king, now he's got top pair or better, like it says, 1 second. Here we go. He's going to have top pair significantly less, and he's going to have middle pair significantly less as well. So a king is a pretty good scare card. If we pick a jack instead of a king, so let's say like a jack of diamonds, then his top pair is he's going to have top pair or better about 38% of the time, but he's going to have middle pair or better 42% of the time. So any jack, I would say even a 10 would be a good card to barrel because all those, they're going to just fold out these 3s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s. They're going to have a hard time continuing. So I would fire any 5 or any 10 or higher. And if I get called on the turn when I delay continuation bet, I'm just giving up on the river. So that's the 3 hands. Hopefully that going through that thought process is going to be helpful for you guys. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And yeah, I mean, we're going to continue doing this kind of analysis moving forward just because there's so many different kind of situations. I mean, there's, as you saw on this matrix, there's so many ways that we can look at our hand and the flop texture and the villain kinds and the positions. So I mean, that's what poker is all about. So we're going to continue doing that moving forward. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And as always, good luck at the tables.